is Tigray, a land carved by defiance, blood, and sacrifice. From the very beginning of our history until its very end, we have relentlessly fought for freedom, never submitting to the forces of our oppressors. We have suffered, mourned, and died, but by all means we have never stopped fighting for the soul and identity of Tigray. And for this very cause, so much has been sacrificed. In the early 1970s, Emperor Haile Selassie savored his final years of rule, securing his place as the last monarch Ethiopia will ever have, bringing to a swift and chaotic end a legacy of a monarchy that traced a direct bloodline thousands of years into ancient history. The year was 1974, and communist Derg regime led by Mengistu Haile Mariam had just fully established rule over Ethiopia shortly after overthrowing the last monarch. Ethiopia has always been divided into numerous different ethnic groups, each with their own unique languages and cultures, but Mengistu sought to diminish and crush the individualism and diversity. He maintained and conformed Ethiopia into a united communist state. Ethiopian civilians everywhere were being oppressed for expression of their culture, but one particular region stood its ground the most, Tigray. On Lekatit Aserte Kilte, 11 young Tigrayan men came together to form a resistance group that fought for Tigray's and even the rest of Ethiopia's freedom against Derg. They were named TPLF, Tigrayan People's Liberation Front. Mengistu did not respond kindly to such resistance. Because it was Tigray who spoke out against the injustices and oppression, they became the key targets for the mass suffering preparing to unfold. "This is the blood of my enemies," he exclaims in this clip. He threatens calling his following operations the Red Terror, which arises as a violent political campaign in hopes to eliminate and terminate any political opponents, having a death toll ranging up to 500,000 people. And this was only the beginning of the struggle. Unfortunately, there was much bloodshed yet to come.
There is no point in fighting if the people are finished. This is the saddest time in my life. I have seen many desperate times, but none of them is as desperate as this one. Because the people that I am fighting for are dying because of lack of food. They are hardworking, but because of lack of support, because of lack of scientific agricultural practices, these people are dying because of no fault of themselves. That's the toughest thing for a fighter to face.
The fight for freedom did not come easy, and an unbearable amount of sacrifice must have been made. For 17 years, Tigrayan rebels fought, even later conjoining with Eritrean forces together with the one goal of taking Mengistu down. But the Red Terror was not the only sacrifices Tigray made for its cause. Throughout the 17 years, constant bombings and air raids, innocent civilians being killed, men and women as young as teenagers joining to fight for the struggle, willing to sacrifice anything to protect Tigray. And the tragedy most famously known globally, the famine alone killed up to 1 million men, women, and children, not counting any other factors of the war. And this famine was most heavily centered in none other than Tigray. While the Derg regime deliberately held back aid from reaching regions where the resistance group TPLF operated, making it a weapon of war. This became a whole global ordeal. The international community continued to watch in horror as images of starving children and barren lands emerged, forcing a wave of media attention. Many came together in hopes to raise awareness of these sufferings, the most famous instance being the hit single, We Are the World, created by some of the most famous American pop idols of the time, to raise awareness and donation money for aid. But what cause could be so just and sincere that it would be worth all this pain that our people had to go through? The cause of protecting our identity and very being, to be finally set free of the chains of oppression and our sufferings, and to preserve the hope that one day all the struggle would pay off and our people would be free. And it was for this cause that so many young men and women were willing to sacrifice everything for. In 1982, a segment of TPLF freedom fighters were captured, including popularly known ones such as Eshi Gebru and Amora. Both were interviewed by Mengistu, asked countless questions about TPLF, but both stood strong in their cause, unfazed despite the pressure. Shortly after, they were brutally martyred, forced to dig up their own mass graves, along with their fellow captured freedom fighters, and all were brutally shot while forcefully laid down in the graves, while their faith in their cause stood firm until the very end. Asmenlash was another prime example of a man willing to sacrifice everything for Tigray. In this struggle, he lost his sight due to a raid by Derg. In the Eritrean War 1998, he lost his arm, and in the 2021 war, he lost his life. He stood firm in this cause, never hesitant to sacrifice everything for Tigray. These are just few of many millions of Tigrayans that sacrificed everything, and that's just in this first war. After 17 years of struggle and suffering, that cause that so many have fought and died for, it had been achieved. TPLF freedom fighters marched into Addis Ababa in victory and celebration. That hope that so many held onto, even till death, that we would one day see our liberation, had been reached. Everything we fought for at this moment succeeded. Ethiopia was liberated and established into a democratic, free country, and Meles Zenawi, a freedom fighter throughout the war, was rightfully established as Prime Minister. From 1991 to 2018, Ethiopia entered a period of growth and enjoyed peace like never before. In the early stages, there was still unresolved conflict with Eritrea, which eventually became independent. During this time, TPLF focused heavily on rebuilding the country and improved the state immensely. A Martyrs Memorial Museum was built in Tigray to commemorate all the sacrifices and hardships that helped create the peaceful and fruitful Ethiopia that emerged. But after a fruitful 27 years, a familiar figure rose to power. Someone who reminded us of a previous regime that also hated our people, Abiy Ahmed. He overtook leadership of Ethiopia in 2018, and TPLF moved its base to Tigray, leading to a 2-year standoff that would end in unimaginable tragedy. In 2020, Abiy Ahmed postponed the elections, placing the blame on COVID. But just as from the very beginning of our history, Wayanis refused to submit to injustice, we stood firm in our cause of freedom and democracy and went ahead and casted our votes. This act became Abiy's final straw. Our struggle was to be reawakened.
The federal government had every right to deploy federal security forces.
Men were killed, some burned alive, women were gang raped, children were massacred, and nearly everyone was suffering under famine, leading to 800,000 plus casualties in just civilians.
So they didn't allow you to bury him or to mourn him? And was it the Amhara Fano militia who did that to your family?
This war was a massive repeat in history, including an all-out famine centered in Tigray, just like the one Meles mourned about in his day. This was a man-made famine by Abiy Ahmed, and he additionally blocked out many forms of aid from reaching Tigray. Hospitals were looted, and people seemed to be dying left and right. On top of all the sufferings of the civilians, there were so many brave soldiers that gave their lives for the Tigrayan cause. Siyu Mesfen and Asmanash, both men who had been Tigrayan freedom fighters since the Old War of 1975 to 1991. They became martyrs once again as they refused to surrender for their cause, and they were willing to sacrifice their lives for it, which they did. They were among the many who martyred for Tigray. Our enemies attempted to publish videos of the various murders of our people to degrade Tigray, but we only grew stronger. Devastatingly, the Tigrayan Martyrs Memorial Museum was looted by enemy soldiers, and artifacts and memorials were broken and burned. This was an attempt to defile the Tigrayan cause and destroy our history, but this is not enough to break our morale, and nothing ever will be. Through thick and thin, no matter what they try to take from us, the stories of our history, brave martyrs, culture, and cause will never be lost, and we will always prevail. Now, in honor of all who gave everything for Tigray, we take a moment to remember them, not as numbers, but as heroes. loss and sacrifice was not in vain. It was the price of freedom. Our martyrs live on, not just in memory, but in the soul and heart of Tigray.